Hey, Ethan, I love what you do, man. First of all, I'm a fan, and I know I reached out to you on TikTok and was like, because you cover so many things. You're definitely an investigative journalist, and I think that what you're doing, you do it in a very interesting way. And I also like it when you go, and then we'll do because we're already recording. But I like it when you go, all right, I'm gonna really get into this, but let me just do it up front for everybody who's gonna flip the screen and tell you what we're about to do. Like I love how you take either the news or like confidential documents that have been dropped and you explain them to morons like me. So first, I am a fan. That's why I'm bringing you on. So thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Bobby.
Um, so something that just happened, I don't know, is your account down? Like your main account?
Yeah, it got permanently banned. I lost 120,000 followers. It's a bummer, but you start over a lot in life, so I'm not gonna let it hurt me too bad.
Permanently banned, not
Yeah.
temporarily. Somebody flagged something. Was it because? Well, I'll ask you why.
So the whole Trump situation that happened, one of my followers was in person at the rally, and he sent me a video of what had happened, and it just showed that everybody was more aware of what was going to happen than what it seemed like. Like there was a couple minutes that went by of people that were fully aware that there was a shooter telling the Secret Service. And I just posted the video and I said, "Hey, this is pretty weird," and that was grounds for taking my whole account.
Why do you
So
think?
lesson learned
Yeah.
on talking about politics.
Why do you think you were banned? In your opinion, why do you think the account was banned?
I couldn't say for sure. I would like to take it as a journalism award for I got a little too close to something maybe, but there's no concrete way to know for sure. The timing was suspicious with the whole Trump thing and getting taken down. And I think with politics, image is important, especially around election time. So if there is a crackdown period, it would probably be now.
Do you hear from people that you talk about in these stories, like this one specifically? Because again, you had kind of walked through this connection, that connection. You had formed your theory on what was happening. Anybody reach out and say, "Hey, dude, like we're gonna sue you, or we're gonna like punch you in the face," anything like that?
I've definitely had some very question. I had a questionable visit to my house, and somebody told me to just cool my jets, which that prompted me moving. That was pretty scary. But aside from that, nothing too crazy. I get a lot of, threatening messages every day, but there's no telling who it's coming from. Usually just people will mention a video I made, usually about Diddy, saying, you're pushing some sort of agenda, you can't post this, things will happen to you, and then nothing ever comes of it. But
Somebody,
it can be a little frightening.
somebody came to your house,
Yeah, someone did. I moved out of California because of that.
and did they knock on the door? How did you have a conversation with them? And did you think it was just somebody like a solicitor or something?
That was my first thought. I was expecting it to be, the neighborhood vacuum salesman or a neighbor. And they told me, quite frankly, I opened the door and they just said, your videos online are doing nobody any good and you need to cool your jets with the stuff you're talking about right now. And they walked off. And that was pretty, I mean, that was weird. It wasn't something to call home about, but it was scary for me. I lived alone. Um, so it was uncomfortable for sure, but not really the kind of thing I would let stop me. And all that info is, public on the internet. So what am I going to do?
Why do this? Why are you pursuing this career, this path of being the investigative journalist that you are?
So I have autism, not like super bad or anything, but it's always been an interest of mine reading through these documents and just kind of learning what other people don't know. My dad and I, when I used to live there, we'd hot tub every night and talk about aliens. And I started reading the alien files that the CIA dropped, and I found so much interesting stuff. When I was 15, I found a file that was talking about the Roswell crash, and it confirmed that it actually happened. It was on the FBI's website. It had never been covered by mainstream journalism, no corporate media. So that prompted this whole spark of reading through these. And over the years, I've read probably thousands of these files. And after a while, I just decided, why isn't this on the internet?
Do you feel like they are slow rolling information about UFOs or aliens or whatever UTA or whatever letters they're using now. And why would the FBI put it on their website as a document if they didn't want us to know about it?
That's one of my biggest questions. I think they've got to be slow rolling something out, almost getting us used to it. And there's no telling for sure, but the fact that you have all of this stuff on, the CIA website or the FBI, National Archives, and it's never been covered by mainstream journalism anywhere. No Fox News, no NBC. It's mind blowing because it's straight from the .gov website. And I've found documents talking about people doing stuff like in the show Stranger Things, moving things with their mind, burning people by touching them. And you're reading this like it's a science fiction novel, and you have to look back and go like, this is it's paperwork approving more funding because it works. And it makes me wonder, was it fake for the Soviets to try to trick them out, or is this something that we actually are doing and have access to?
Do you feel like they're putting it out and because it isn't such a documented, boring, contractual looking piece of information that people won't read it because it just is not appealing?
Probably, but that goes back to your point of why is it even there? Um, that's kind of one of the things that made it so interesting for me is there's no concrete way to know, but all of this information's there, and when you really dig into it, half of these crazy things you read about, there's more evidence going for it than against it.
So you believe there are things that aren't us on a planet that is not this planet?
It's likely. It's really likely. I mean, looking at how big space is, for example, if you were to look at how much space we've explored in comparison to the ocean, it would be like us going and dipping a glass in the water and saying, "Look it, there's no fish in here. We must be alone."
Mm.
The amount of space we've actually pioneered is next to nothing.
I agree with you. I'm just asking you without in a non-leading way to see how you feel, because I agree. We know nothing. We know very little. Our full capacity of what we know is only measured by itself, meaning we have no idea what we don't know. And even the ocean, which is a great analogy, in the cup of water, like the ocean, what 5% of it's mapped, 6%. We don't even know what's in the ocean, much less what is in space. And I've read certain things. Do you feel like the ocean and space both could be the conduit to, or either could be the conduit to get whatever needs to be here, or Antarctica? Like there are those files too, that Antarctica is some sort of, I hate to use the word portal, but I watch movies and that's what they say, portal. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's really fishy. Why aren't we allowed to go to Antarctica? I mean, we have people that move to Alaska on purpose. You'd think there would be some kind of crowd that would enjoy, unless you're a National Geographic voyage, you're not making it over there. And that's weird. But I definitely agree with you. There's got to be some conduit for this. And reading into those UAP files more, they'll redact a lot of stuff. Nowadays, it's edited like a black image over the text, so you can't read it. But the really old ones, they use a Sharpie, and sometimes they don't get the words perfectly. And I have found extra dimensional Sharpied out so many times. It makes you wonder: are they from space, or is it a whole dimensional thing? Because if it's dimensional, they could be, right here, right now, just not. It's not our Earth.
And how I would explain dimensional to people, because they'll look at me funny. And I don't have a great explanation because I am not in science. However, I would say, with a television, you change channels and there's a frequency that allows this channel and you can see this. There's a slightly different frequency. You push the button, it allows you to see this. In human form that we are, this is a certain frequency. We're not able to see the other frequencies. Just like for watching one channel, we can't see the other channel, even though it's in the exact same place. Like that is my very rudimental analogy of how possibly we're not even able to see the beams, the cell phone. We can't. There's so much around us that we can't see, even that animals can see, and their cones in their eyes are different. And so for us to think that we can see and know everything, but also for you to look into all these files and find where words have been blacked out. Why would they not go and black them out with like the newer version of redacting files and just leave the Sharpied versions up?
It makes you wonder, and it makes me think that they didn't plan on the internet being as big and popular as it is. But that was a very good way to explain the dimensions. It's like if we're in a TV, we can go up, down, left, and right on the screen. That's two dimensional. Three dimensional would be us, moving all around, up, down, left, right, anywhere the ground doesn't stop you. And then taking that further, you need to look at it like an onion. There could be something past the 3D, which would be the fourth. And we can't perceive that, so we can't explain it, but that's likely, if the theory is correct, where the aliens or whatever they are would be. So, us being three dimensional, we could say you had a two-dimensional anthill. If you took water and poured it all over their anthill, to them it's like a biblical flood. They can't even perceive our existence, so water just appeared out of nowhere. So for aliens being, say, a dimension above us, they perceive everything we do, but we wouldn't even know they're there.
And I know this whole thing wasn't about aliens, but I'm so intrigued by just even the term alien is not probably what you and I would use, but I think most people would associate that word with what we're talking about. So we can continue to define it as that. But what do you think is the one piece of evidence that you have seen in all of these files that proves to you mostly that we're probably not the only things that exist? What do you think's been redacted, or what have you seen? You talk about Roswell. Like, what have you seen where you're like, man, if I had to bring one piece of evidence into play, it'd be this?
Easily the pyramids and the construction of them. So they're ancient compared to the Egypt that we know today. And our indigenous populations carved this stuff on stone, but we have highways of pyramids across the earth. And aside from that, they're all constructed exactly the same. Uh, Two of the Great Pyramids coordinates line up exactly to the speed of light. They're all directly under stars and within half a degree of true north, let alone the precision of actual building or moving these multi-ton, blocks around. You'll see on a lot of hieroglyphs, they have a frequency table. So if you were to put sand on a table and play certain frequency, the sand will reorganize and make patterns. Now they would put these patterns on hieroglyphics along with a guy lifting up something very heavy with one arm way above his head. And I think that symbolizes seismic technology or matching the frequency of an object to lighten it. If you have a didgeridoo, you can go pick up solo cups with it just by playing the right note. It'll lift the solo cup off the ground and you can walk around with it. And I think that the biggest evidence we have of extra life on Earth would be the construction of the pyramids and how advanced they were into this technology of frequencies. The same stuff Tesla was obsessed with, yet we didn't even have stone tools. I mean, it makes no sense.
Your Amelia Earhart content, I was enamored by. And I've always been curious and even I would say interested in what has happened. But watching what you pulled from, I don't know if it's a CIA or FBI website, probably CIA, is international, was it CIA?
Yeah, it was CIA, but a lot of it came from naval intelligence because that
Got it.
disappearance happened about 10 years before the CIA was formed.
Got it.
So they kept better record keeping, but most of the good stuff was old Navy intelligence website.
So after reading, and most of my audience probably hasn't seen what you had to say about it, what do you think happened to Amelia Earhart and why?
It seems really plausible she got captured by the Japanese, whether she crashed or didn't. There's a file, basically, a case officer is talking about a message in a bottle that was found with a lock of hair. Now, what's interesting is this is from 1939, and they're talking about that they DNA tested the hair, which, if you do a quick Google, didn't come out until the 80s. So they had that technology before, which is really odd to me. But this case officer goes to the island to investigate, and everybody's very welcoming, very nice. And he started asking about the boat. It's called the Nile Atoll that she was allegedly a prisoner on, and they tortured and interrogated him for like 2 days before letting him go. And that's odd. The government was friendly, the citizens were friendly. He asked a question about a boat, and they bagged his head and took him off to some prison. It raises some flags, and then you find stuff about letters from congressmen asking intelligence, was she a spy? But the good one I uncovered was she wrote to the president asking for some details about her top secret world flight. And this was about 2 years before she had announced the flight. So they could have been talking about the plans and the whole flight was a secret for the time being, or there was a ulterior motive with the actual flight. But it's fishy, and then them confirming they DNA tested it pretty much proves the theory. The only missing pieces, did they really have that technology in the 40s, or what's the deal there?
Do you feel like she was a spy?
It seems plausible, and that's one thing the CIA does is they're famous for recruiting people that already have covers. I mean, if you look into some of these intelligence people or even people that have been suspected of, being a spy, a lot of them are Microsoft executives or sometimes actors, people that are constantly traveling over world borders to, the Middle East or wherever is a point of interest because they already have a cover. They can get picked up. The CIA will bankroll a nice life for them, and all they do is a little bit of spying on their business trip. I'd say she probably was.
So, based on the information that I've heard from you, if I were going to draw a conclusion, and you can tell me if your conclusion is the same, that her flight where she went missing was planned well before the public knew about it. It was planned for a reason. She was intelligence, and she ended up. And I haven't heard you say this. Do you think that if and when that they captured her, they knew she was a spy, or they found out she was a spy, and that is why they kept her?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I would assume that she was probably suspected to be a spy because she was flying over, Japanese airspace right before the war. I'm sure they figured it out. So we never saw her again.
There any pictures of like the side of her head or anything that are suspicious where people are like, hey, that might be her?
So there's one picture, and there's no way to know for sure. It's a picture of a Japanese dock with that boat, the Nile Atoll, and there's a white woman and a white guy. So her and her navigator Fred both went missing, and from the back, the pictures look like them. I went on the Japanese internet and tried to date the photo, and I was unable to. But there are some articles talking about this photo, and everybody's pretty sure it was taken 2 years before her flight. So it's a big maybe. There's no for sure's there, and I'd hate to just say yes without anything concrete.
I would like to talk about the gateway process meditation and the CIA. And first, would you do a bit of explaining just fundamentally on what that is?
Yeah, so the gateway process is kind of similar to that seismic technology that we were talking about earlier, but it's more so in frequency. They would play one frequency in one ear, one frequency in the other, so it's two differing sounds. But what they do is they cause the electrical impulses of each hemisphere of the brain to sync up at exactly the same time. And it puts your mind in this weird state. It's famous for giving people out of body experiences, and the CIA dumped billions of dollars into this from about the 70s until now. I guess they're still doing it, trying to figure out what these out of body experiences are and if they have application for intelligence. After a lot of research and money, they did figure out that people are able to close their eyes and see things when they're not there with accuracy that's pretty scary. They had Stanford, Yale, all of the big universities researching this, as well as their own teams, and everybody came to the same conclusion that it works, and nobody really understands why.
It works to do what exactly? See something far away at the same time? See something in the future? See something in the past?
Yeah, so it wouldn't really be past or future to my knowledge. It would more so be location. So there's a pretty famous one where a guy was supposed to remote view a military base across the United States. And he was talking about some basement sublevel with files and boxes and all this stuff that didn't exist. But they said, hey, you're wrong. We'll call the check anyways. And it turned out that he had remote viewed a top secret sublevel of the base that was on a need to know basis. So nobody knew it was there except for him. And it's things like that. They would use it in any way for intelligence. Hey, we heard there's hostages in Lebanon. Can you check? That's a pretty famous case where a remote viewer confirmed there was hostages. And that's really when it started picking up because the intelligence community was crediting this guy for saving these people.
Have you done any meditation like this?
Yeah, I have. I've been doing the gateway process for probably 5 or 6 months. One of my rich buddies in Los Angeles, he was crediting this to his success. He said it made his intuition, as sharp as a pitchfork, and every business decision he made was right. So he gave me his tapes, had me try them, and I had a weird out of body experience. It's a hard thing to describe, but in the best layman's terms, whether it was my imagination or not, I had this being come up to me and it said, "My purpose in life is to share what I've learned about all of these things, and to put my phone in front of my face and talk about it." And my account blew up. I'd never posted online before. I'd never done anything like it. I was already kind of nagged to post about the documents because I thought it'd be cool. So it was like another layer of confirmation, and my account blew up. It was about 2 months old, and I hit 100,000 followers, which seems to be pretty good. I'm new to the whole thing, but I don't know how easy that'd be to replicate.
So how would I listen to these tapes?
So you can find them online for free. There's a place called the Monroe Institute. They actually offer this as a whole package training where you go there for a week and they'll teach you how to do this. They're the inventors of the gateway tapes, and it seems to be a pretty cool program. But if you can't afford all the money, they you can find them for free online. You have to search a little far and wide, but they're on things like YouTube, Reddit. They get taken off the internet a lot, so you just have to look around and maybe jump sources a few times a week because they'll get taken down and put back up a few times a day.
And you believe that s- even within yourself, you believe that a lot of folks believe this is the key to unlocking some part of our brain, this the gateway process meditation, but and that is why they're still experimenting, trying to figure out why it does it and exactly what it does.
I think so, and it does things that it's very hard to word. We don't have English to describe, but on the flip side, we have physical evidence of how it affects your brain. Buddhists, a lot of people in religion that are very heavy on meditating, they have tons of gray matter in their brain compared to the normal people. And it allows them to reach these higher states of consciousness through meditation and prevents Alzheimer's, which is pretty odd. People that do the Gateway program for 7 days have a 25% increase in gray matter, to a point where on the Monroe Institute website, it cites these studies and says it will hurt your head if you do it too fast. It causes so much physical change, it gives you headaches. It doesn't feel good at first. But it definitely is doing something in terms of strengthening the brain, just as seeing how much gray matter people that do this kind of meditation have versus people that never meditate in their lives.
How what kind of time allotment per day would you need? Let's say you were me and you were going to go to the Monroe Institute and pay whatever amount of money. Like, is it 8 hours a day? Is it 15 minutes a day and it builds up? How does that work?
So there's multiple tapes. I would just do one a night. That's how I did it all the way through. And each tape's 30 to 45 minutes. And you close your eyes, you put on the headphones, get a nice comfy dark room, and sometimes it feels like you're there for 4 hours, and sometimes it's like 5 minutes goes by and you're already done. But what you'll notice is you get through the first, 4 or 5 tapes and you don't really feel like you got anywhere. It's not enough is really happening. And then suddenly it's like a switch just flicks on in your brain and it takes you to this whole new place. And whether it's your imagination or not will be a great argument forever. But man, the things you'll see and hear is I've never thought stuff like that before, and it'll tell you some crazy stuff.
And you're telling me there's an instance, at least that has been documented, if true or not, we don't know, where they used this technique, and through meditation, someone identified if there were hostages in another country.
It's happened multiple times. So you can read a lot of those files. It's called Project Sunstreak, but it has, photo examples of here they would put a photo in an envelope. This is when they were first testing it out. say it would be a photo of a tree or somebody's house. They would seal it up in an envelope and tell somebody, look inside the envelope and tell me what's in there. So the guy would go do his meditation and come out with a drawing that would be accurate down to the materials that the house used. And there's probably 40 instances just in this one file, and it shows the drawing next to the photo, and it's impeccable how accurate this is. I mean, it's almost funny to think about because the government is telling someone, "Hey, go close your eyes and tell me if there's hostages in Lebanon, or go draw this house." And that seems like something out of a science fiction novel, but it's almost laughable how out there it is. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah. If for some reason you get your old account back, if it is not permanently banned, we will put in the notes and we're going to preface all this anyway with some lead in. We will make sure that your old account is shared, communicated, make sure everybody knows where to go. Otherwise, your new TikTok is Ethan Frice, ETHANFRICE, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. And we have hashtag free Ethan going on right now. If anyone wants to go throw something in there, I'm sure it would help.
Yeah, free freaking Ethan's what I say. I can't believe it. I saw you posting, but I saw a lot of people posting footage of where everybody was freaking out because nobody was actually stopping what was happening. I'm surprised that they took your account down because I have seen it now in a few places where it's raw footage of people going, hey, 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 and nobody's paying attention to it.
It's bizarre. I mean, I'm hoping it was banned by mistake. I've submitted probably 60 appeals, and I get an automated response back that says, your account won't come back. We won't respond again. But I keep getting that email, so I'm hoping the more times I send it, a person will see it, and I can get my account back. But I agree. I've seen it all over the internet. I don't know why me posting it was such a problem, but my account is a little bit excuse me, my account's a little bit controversial, so it doesn't surprise me it's gone. It's just a little bit shocking.
I want to ask you one more question, and I didn't tell you I was going to ask you about this, but the Challenger explosion, I believe it was a Challenger explosion. This to me is wild. Now, you can set it up better than I can, but it seems like, according to what I've heard you say, there are basically older doppelganger versions of the people who died that exist today. How real is this, do you feel? And if you don't mind, just reset it up for my listeners, because I was trying to explain this to some friends and they were like, you're crazy. I'm like, maybe, or maybe I'm just not telling the story right.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting topic. I believe there was 4 or 5 astronauts on board, but there are older gosh, I can't talk, my bad. There are older doppelganger versions of these people with the same exact name, spelling, and birthday, which I looked into it, and the only other instance I could find of a doppelganger with the same name, spelling, and birthday, one had happened in the last 100 years, aside from these 3 astronauts, or maybe 4. So what's interesting is you can just Google these astronauts. Google one lady, then Google the other one, professor at Yale for astrophysics. It lines up perfectly with the career and everything. And you start looking closer, and she'll do a little wave with her pinky out. And then you look at the older version doing the same wave, and that could be anything. But then the next guy has a real weird crooked tooth. So does the old gentleman, just one crooked tooth. One of them has a weird scar on their ear, and it's the same. And again, it's nothing you can prove, but it's so interesting. I mean, statistically, that would be called impossible. I can say that. I don't know if I can draw an opinion without enough concrete fact. And it's interesting. So a guy on TikTok had actually interviewed one of the female astronauts, or he just went up and started asking her, "Hey, why do you look like this person? Is there any relation?" And on video, she breaks down almost crying and she runs away. And that's weird. It's nothing you can draw concrete conclusions on. That's almost a little bit dangerous to do, but there's something there, and it's a little fishy and statistically impossible. I mean, it's almost how much coincidence before it's not a coincidence anymore.
Also, why wouldn't they change their name? Because I'm with you. It is such a coincidence. And if you were trying to hide it, that's hiding so much in plain sight that you're caught. But why would they not change their name? Because I saw the pictures of them old and young, but then I think, well, is that an AI photo that they've just made older? Because again, I'm only taking the information from social media, as are you, and you're not drawing any conclusion as well, except saying, wow, if this is true, this is wild. Do we know that those pictures are really them older and not some AI version that someone's made?
Yeah, so most of the photos I used in that video, I pulled from their personal LinkedIn accounts. What's funny is I believe his name is Dick Scobie. He goes by Richard Scobie now. He's now the CEO of Cows and Trees. Their logo is a crashing rocket ship.
It's crazy.
It's
It's crazy. Yeah, it's
You
crazy.
can't make it up.
His account is at Ethan Frice. Ethan, I really appreciate it. I'm sorry your account's taken down. I will go and follow your new account. I'm a big fan. I watch all your videos. And thanks for giving me a little bit of time today.
Much appreciated, Bobby. Appreciate you having me on. This was a first for me. I had a blast. So thank you.
All right, buddy. See you later.